Welcome to Content Creators Connect. Here we are all about encouraging the three C's, connecting with others via video, content development that builds your personal brand, and creators sharing their experiences despite their distance.
And for those of those of you that are joining us for the first time, let's get to know the C3 team. Myself, I am known as Classic Mac to my community, and I love to find low cost live streaming tips and tricks and anything to do with live streaming on a budget. So if you are interested, make sure you check out some of our other videos where we've actually described some of those different low cost live streaming techniques. And then we will move on over to Dispense, or as we like to call her, Dory. She will be doing our wonderful presentation today, and she uses her superpowers to install confidence in those around her and helping others become experts in their own adventures. Then on the far side, we have Coach Manny, coaching us in the world of social media marketing, as well as pursuing his passion of streaming true crime. So, today we're on a very important topic that I'm excited to learn about. So, Dory, how has the idea of branding evolved for you, and why do you think it's so important to talk about tonight?
Well, I don't know if you guys could tell, but I kind of really like getting into branding a little bit. But as part of a YouTube training that I was introduced to, I'm sorry, that I was completing, I was introduced to a book called Primal Branding by Patrick Hanlon. The cover has been reprised, so if you go on Amazon and look for this book, you might see a different cover, but this is the up-to-date version of it. And it has quickly become my absolute favorite book about branding. It's such an ever-evolving process for many people, including myself, as I grow into myself online and kind of discover who I am a little bit. And I literally cannot wait to share these 7 elements of branding with you guys tonight. Manny, how do you think branding comes across in your streams? How much have you focused on it?
Great question. When it comes to branding, I'm still working on the outer side, should I say. One of the things that I believe branding to be is, what do people think of when they think of you and your business? So to me, like that's what I think about a lot as well. That's why I really look forward to to your training. And I've not read that book, so I'm going in with complete fresh ears. But when I think about branding and myself, I know aesthetically, I still need to find myself in the branding department. But the flip side of that, let's take the social media marketing side. And in my area, I try to be branded as that social media coach. So when they think of me, I want them to think about social media coach. And so when I think of branding, I think of how do you want to be thought of when they think of you or when they think of something else. So if you're like an insurance agent, what would someone think of that makes them think, oh, insurance, boom, that person. So to me that's what I see branding as. Hopefully I'm on the same page because I know a lot of people think branding, logo, colors and things like that. I don't quite think that way. I'm thinking more how do they think of you in a branding term? So Kevin, what do you think about that?
Well, I'll keep it short and succinct. I need a lot of help. So I need a lot of. I'm looking forward to what Dory has to present because I'm sort of with you, Manny. It's like, yeah, I believe branding is one thing, but it's also the colors and the logo and stuff. So I think it's a mashup of everything. So I'm very interested to see what Primal Branding has to say about that. So, Dory, why don't we talk about this content? And if this is the type of content that you would like to see more of, please consider hitting that subscribe button and make sure you hit that notification button so you know when we go live. So, Dory, why don't you give us some awesome golden nuggets of knowledge tonight and let's get on with that content.
No pressure. No pressure whatsoever. So, okay, I can't I can't ooze love for this book anymore than just saying I would highly recommend. I'm going to just put it up here in front of the screen one more time. Primal Branding by Patrick Hanlon. It's an amazing book. I can even drop a link to Amazon. I know I've talked about it before on streams. If you are an Audible person, I would not recommend the Audible version of this book. Um, it it doesn't translate well. The person who reads it is not very charismatic, which is the opposite of what a book about branding should be. So, what we're going to do is we are going to dive right in. Hopefully, you guys are going to be able to see my screen.
All
And
good.
Perfect.
tonight, we are going to talk about primal branding. So, just to give you a main idea of the book, once you look at a brand as a belief system, this is a direct quote from Hanlon, located on page 7 of the book. Once you look at a brand as a belief system, it automatically gains all the advantages that enterprise already strives for. Things like trust, vibrancy, relevance, a sense of values, community, leadership, vision, empathy, commitment. These are all very positive sounding words. With the 7 pieces of primal code in place, you have created a belief system and products and services that people can believe in. And Manny, this is going to touch immediately on the point that you made, where branding isn't just about a logo and colors. Branding is about the entire package. So, using these elements, you're going to be able to create a strong and very distinct identity that hopefully resonates with your audience and build a very loyal following. Now, before we get into anything too detailed, I also wanted to take a moment to just honor the author, Patrick Hanlon, and tell you a little bit about him for those that don't know him, just to cover like why he is in fact the expert that he is on branding. So, he is the author and CEO of a company called Thinktopia, and that is a brand strategy firm. He has spent well over 20 years working with, and this is a very short list, Procter and Gamble, GE, Ford, Pepsi. Basically, if there is a brand out there that you can immediately think in terms of vision, anything to do with your senses, sights, sounds, smells, ideals, anything like that, I guarantee that Hanlon has touched the training involved with this company. And so that's going to bring me to let's talk about what the definition of branding actually is. And I absolutely love this quote from Jeff Bezos. A brand is what other people say about you when you are not in the room. You know, people tiptoe around you a little bit when you're face to face, and it's the things that they say about you when you're not around. That's the important piece. And by definition, from American Marketing Association, branding is considered a name, term, design, symbol, or basically any other feature that identifies one seller's good or service as distinct from those of others. But more important than that, as far as what it is, it's why do we need it? And the idea of branding, the objective of it is to attract and retain loyal customers and other stakeholders. Now, for content creators, stakeholders is a very broad term. It can be people that watch our videos, people that come to us for coaching, people that come to us for general advice. Maybe it's fellow content creators who are just part of our audience for support. So, stakeholders for us is a very broad term. But it does this by delivering a product that is always aligned with, and if I could have made this 100-point font and still fit it on the slide, I would have, what the brand promises. It is really important that you promise what aligns with your values, and then you follow up those promises with your delivery and with your actions. So, that in a nutshell is what branding actually is. It's really, in very most basic terms, just the idea or the image that people have in mind when they think about you. So, when people think about me, they don't necessarily think about a color. They don't necessarily think about a logo, although you'll learn in a little bit how I've incorporated a little bit of my look into things like my logo and my icons. But they really just think about who I am as a person. And that says a lot about how far you've come with your branding. So, why is branding so important? Well, in a word, emotion. And for those that read a lot of how-to books on branding, they talk more about the strategy. And as Manny mentioned, and Kevin touched on this a little bit as well, colors, look, logo, icons, text, things like that. When in fact, none of that means jack diddly squat. I'll keep it PG. If there's no emotion behind it, because no one is ever going to listen to you, learn from you, buy from you, or most importantly, fight for you if they do not feel emotionally invested in you. And so think about people that you follow online. Why do you come back to hear their message? Why do you keep coming back to watch their videos? They evoke an emotion in you, whether it be anger, whether it be love, whether it be empathy. It doesn't matter. Any good brand, and we as content creators are a brand, any good brand evokes emotion. So now I want to get into the meat of the book. The book itself covers what Patrick Hanlon calls the 7 elements of primal branding. And they are not necessarily in any particular order of importance, but what I have found through actually going through this practice is there are certain things that as you grow, your audience expects from you before other things, if that makes sense. So the very first element is known as the creation story. And I'm going to break down each of these 7 and give some examples of them as we move along. After the creation story is something called the creed, then the icon, the rituals, the pagans, otherwise known as the non-believers, the sacred words, and finally, the leader. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm getting chills right now. Okay, so the creation story. What I've done is I've put a few quotes direct from the book, including the page numbers on screen. But in essence, let's break the creation story down in real plain text. It's just an explanation of how the brand came to be. And please remember, wherever I mention the word brand, we are a brand. Insert the term content creator here. Live streamer, life streamer, vlogger, blogger, whatever. It explains how the brand came to be. It is your origin story, and it's the basis of your identity. It should be compelling, and as part of it, it should be able to express to your audience your brand value and its purpose. So if you take a look, I thought these were some really key points that he made regarding your creation story. First, he said it's crucial for everyone to have an understanding of who you are and where you come from. It really is the foundation of trust, and I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. Creation stories usually embody the who and the why. Who and why they started is important for people to know. And it is the crucial first step in providing answers to why people should care about you or your product or your service or your message. And so for me, my creation story, I loved doing this exercise when I went through the training and then when I went through the book a second time. I loved writing my creation story. And we actually had to film it. And I would highly encourage you to go through this process. Think about why you are who you are with your brand, what message you want to put out there, and think about how did you get to this point? All of that should be included in your creation story. And eventually, over time, you'll be able to just very organically share pieces of your creation story in your videos, in your posts, and it literally just becomes part of who you are with your community. So, some examples of a creation story. Apple. Apple's creation story. Two guys named Steve who started building personal computers in their parents' garage. That's where Apple started. That's their creation story in a nutshell, give or take. And Pampers. This one I absolutely loved. A researcher by the name of Victor Mills worked for Procter & Gamble, and he basically hated changing his grandson's cloth diapers. I mean, who wouldn't hate that process? So he set about trying to create a disposable diaper because he didn't want to contend with the cloth diapers anymore. That's his creation story. That's the story of how Pampers began. Now, if you think about people who are like us, who are creating more of a personal brand versus a company, your creation story could be something about how you got started in the field. What obstacles did you overcome? How did you actually discover your passion? So I immediately think about you, Kevin, where you are so focused on like those low cost budget options. There has to be something. There has to be a path that you took to get there. You might just have to sit down and think about it and write it out. That would be an amazing piece to your creation story. Think about a motivational speaker. Your creation story could be about challenges that you faced, and then how did you overcome them to become the person you are today? That's a huge part of my creation story, actually, is hurdles that I've had to overcome to become who I am now. So your creation story, I think, is probably the most important place to start when it comes with branding, which is very backwards from what most people will tell you, because most people will tell you Find something that looks like you and put it out there, when in fact your message and who you are is far more important than that. And speaking of your message, let's move on to your creed. Now, the word creed is synonymous with terms like your mission statement, your value proposition, things that we have heard through various trainings in the past. So, a creed is, in fact, a set of beliefs or values that define you. And it is, at its most basic form, a statement of your purpose and what you stand for. And these are some two messages that Hanlon put out in the book specifically regarding creed. All ideologies begin with a set of core principles. And defining, understanding, and communicating your mission are critical to the success of your brand. I should say that again for the people in the back. Defining what you are all about and what your mission is probably the most important thing that you can do to get a clear vision as to who you are and what your brand represents. And all of these things are small, simple, concise statements, but they house these hugely bold ideas. And it's the singular notion that you want people to believe. And so I thought about some examples of creeds. And I thought, Nike has a pretty basic creed. Just do it. People think of it as, oh, it's their company motto. Well, yeah, it is. That's what a creed is. It's your motto. It's what you live by. So Nike's is just do it. How about the Marines? Semper Fi. And Semper Fi, it stands for always faithful. That's an amazing message and an amazing value to live by. My creed is I use my superpowers to install confidence in those around me and help others become texperts in their own adventures. I am all about confidence and getting people to build up theirs. So that's my creed. So if you think about, go back to that example of a motivational speaker. Your creed might be something like, I inspire others to reach their full potential. Kevin's is make the world 10% better. I like that. If you're a fitness coach, maybe your creed is something like empower people to live a healthy and active lifestyle. Maybe you're somebody who's focused on personal development, personal growth, and empowering individuals to become the best version of themselves is my most important goal. Something like to that. You want to embody your idea, and if you can, also include how you're going to do it. That's really what a value proposition is. And so I was waiting for Manny to follow suit and drop his creed in the comments.
I'm working on it.
So that's why I put that second. I think it's important to start crafting your creation story and then start thinking about, why are you doing it? What's the value and what are your principles that you want to put out there to the universe, to the world? And then you can start thinking about the visuals. Icons. An icon is a symbol or it's an image that represents you, represents your brand. It represents your identity. And the reason an icon exists is to create that instant recognition, quick flashes of meaning. And those quick flashes should be able to sum up who you are and what you're about. Now, if you look at your screen right now up in the top left corner, that's one of my icons. That is one of my icons. It is something that represents me, and that is my funky glasses. What does that say about my personality? Well, it says I'm a little out there.
A
Um,
little?
maybe I take a few too many risks. Maybe I live on the wild side a little bit. Maybe I just have that quirky aspect to my personality. But those are things that I think you would be able to pick up pretty quick looking at a pair of neon pink and purple glasses and lime green, and then seeing a picture of me wearing those or some iteration of them on one of my streams. So my glasses are an icon for me. And according to Hanlon, they are quick concentrations of meaning that cause your brand identity and values to what he calls spontaneously resonate. And I love that term. I love that term because not only should an icon represent visually your identity and your value, but it should also speak to your personality. Um, and the simplest and often easiest icon to recognize is the company logo. But he points out that there are many other kind of icons out there as well. And so let's take a look at some very, very telling icons. I want you to focus on the McDonald's icon in the center. Do either of you gentlemen, little trivia, do either of you gentlemen know how that logo was created? What it's meant to represent?
The McDonald's one,
Mm-hmm.
besides arches.
Do you know what the arches are?
No, I don't.
I heard the story a long time ago and it's slipped my mind.
Okay. So the arches in the McDonald's represent two French fries.
Ah,
Yep. They represent two French
interesting.
fries bent to form the M. Because if you think about McDonald's, now I'm not a fast food eater, um, and I don't know if you guys often eat fast food or not, but if you if you think about McDonald's, even if you've only had it once or twice, can you not taste their French fries right now?
Mm-hmm.
A
Oh
hundred
yeah.
See,
Now I
percent.
want some.
yep, it's and that is amazing primal branding right there. You see those arches and you immediately get the taste of their French fries in your mouth. Now, some of these others very recognizable. The Nike swoosh. Um, if you think about Cinnabon, which I don't have on here, but if you think about that, just the smell of the cinnamon from those buns as you walk by one of those places in the mall makes you want to divert your path and turn around and visit their store. It's if you can imprint on one of the five senses, you will, oh my God, leaps and bounds for your brand, leaps and bounds for your brand. Target, Apple, I mean, some of these are just some of the most iconic icons that exist. It doesn't, maybe just small exposure to it, and you immediately know what all seven of those are. So, your icon, it could be a logo, or, let's say you don't have a design or a specific logo yet. It could be a picture that represents you. Um, Maybe you are a public speaker or a motivational speaker. It could be a picture of you on stage, or it could be a picture of you out there in the field doing what you love most that represents you and your brand. Um, i- if you're a chef, your icon could be a picture of you in a chef hat and an apron. Um, it can be something simple. It does not have to be this overly complex thing. It shouldn't be something where someone has to think about what it represents and how it relates to you. I love thinking about icons though. I have a few of them. Um, but I think that having something that visually stands for you and everything that your message represents is key to that primal piece of branding. Having you go from just somebody who's producing content to someone who is easily recognizable in the snap of a finger is that difference right there. Moving on to rituals. Now, rituals is interesting because some of these kind of overlap a little bit when you start talking about rituals and icons, and as we move forward, getting into something called sacred words. Um, but rituals is all about actions, it's behaviors that are associated with you, actions that are associated with you. They're the ways that your brand is experienced by others, and even as far as how you bring it to life. Um, they can be physical, they can be symbolic. And here's the piece that I think people forget: they can be performed by you, they could be performed by your followers. And lastly, they don't necessarily have to be performed on camera. They could be rituals that you do to prepare for giving a speech or prepare for putting a video out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be things that you show to the public to be considered part of your ritual. So, Hanlon talks about this in several different points of the book. And he talks about rituals being touch points with your brand and ideology that might be made more pleasant, more engaging, enhanced, simplified, less frustrating, or more fun. So basically, a ritual can be anything, is what he's saying there. They're meaningful, they're repeated points of contact between you and your, let's call them, target audience, your followers. And they can serve as enriching touch points that excite consumers and intensify the brand experience. I don't know about you gentlemen, but I like a little intensity, so I am all about rituals here. Now, I have a lot of rituals actually, and it took a while for me to actually identify them as rituals. And here's where you can rely on your followers, your community, and even other content creators to help you with this. People that know you and have witnessed your brand in action can help you craft your list of rituals. So it's the ways you interact with your audience and for your audience. And again, just to reiterate the point, they do not need to be performed in front of your audience. So what are things that become rituals? Holding regular Q&A sessions, hosting live events, consistently posting on certain days of the week. Think about the structure of our C3 shows, right? We have a ritual that we have built into this show where we talk about creators and content and connections, right? Our C3 motto or values behind it. Um, if you're a writer, maybe your ritual is that you wake up in the morning and you write for an hour before leaving the house. For me, anybody that watches my daily streams, they know what my ritual is. I start wearing sunglasses, dancing to music that doesn't exist anywhere inside my own head. Um, the way I start every video is the same. Well, hello, peeps, right? And then the way I end my videos is the same every single time. And I know that they're rituals because I have people, when I see them in person, they will say to me, well, hello, Spence. And they say it in the same voice intonation, the same inflection. And I absolutely love that. And Manny has a few faith based rituals that you do first thing in the morning. I love that. I love that. And I do have morning rituals as well. Um, and of course, Kevin's is playing a song that pumps him up. Uh, can't play it live. Yep, and we have to live inside those rules, don't we? But yeah, I would encourage you to identify some rituals that you may not even realize that you do. Now let's talk about the thing that content creators hate talking about. I think this becomes an interesting point because no one wants to believe that there are people out there that do not connect with their message, right? We want to believe that we're connecting with everybody, even though we know that's not even realistic. It's not even realistic. So Patrick Hanlon talks about, he uses the term pagans to refer to non-believers. These are people who do not align with your values. They do not align with your message. They don't connect with you on an emotional level. And he makes a great point here. Part of saying who you are and what you stand for is also declaring who you are not and what you do not stand for. And I think that's just as important. Um, and it can be really hard for marketers when they don't want to exclude potential customers. And he addresses that flat out in the book. And he goes on to talk about the idea of community. And your community is the group of people who are connected to you in some way. It's your audience. They identify with your values, they identify with your beliefs, and it helps create a sense of belonging, I think, and sharing something important in those values and ideals. And doing that on a regular basis is going to help create that loyal following and those people who will advocate and fight for you. And so I think it's okay to say, you're not my cup of tea, and be okay with that. You have to be okay with not being everybody's cup of tea. Because if you're trying to talk to everyone, what am I going to say? You end up talking to no one. And so, a couple examples. Some of these are incredibly relevant. We have Apple versus Android, Mac versus PC, Ford versus Chevy, right? And then this is an example that Hanlon points out in the book. 7 Up declared itself the uncola. So it talked about what it wasn't in helping to define what it was. So these pagans are people whose beliefs are directly in opposition to your creed, to your value message. Um, so I thought that was interesting. It's not something I like to think about a lot, but if you can identify the people that don't resonate with you, it's easier to eliminate them from your target message very organically. Moving on to number 6, sacred words. One of my favorite things that Hanlon addresses in this book. It's the words and phrases that are associated with you as a brand. It's the way that you communicate, and it's how you express who you are. So, for you as a personal brand, it could be uh, the language could be the words and phrases that you use. It could be the tone of your voice. It could be ways that you describe yourself and specific ways that you communicate with your audience. So, if you think about it, there are words that you use, and they could be specialized jargon, but it doesn't just have to be your specialized jargon. It can be words that you use to refer to your followers, right? Um, Nick Nimmin, uh, when he talks about his followers, he calls them the Nimminati, people that are in his group. He calls them the Nimminati, right? Um, I refer to people that I talk to online as my peeps. Now, it's not something that you should try to force. It's something that should definitely happen organically. And it should be something that resonates a little bit about your personality, right? Now, I'm not going to walk into a meeting with my superintendent during my day job and be like, hey, what's up, peep? I want to keep my job, so I'm not going to do that. So, but when I'm talking to my audience online, I do. I call them peeps. Um, and I think that it's important to create that camaraderie around those sacred words because it helps bind people together and it reinforces the idea that you are a community and you are emotionally tied to each other. So let's take a look at some examples of sacred words. Starbucks. Starbucks language is like a foreign language to me. I don't drink Starbucks. So when I look online and I see an example of a Starbucks order as a venti iced zebra mocha, I would be scratching my head. So then I decided, okay, I'm going to translate that. What does that mean? Well, it's a large iced mocha with dark and white chocolate added to it. Now, someone who drinks Starbucks would immediately understand venti iced zebra mocha and would not need any further explanation. Those are sacred words to someone who frequents Starbucks. They are not sacred words to myself. I had to translate them. If you think about if you're a computer user, this is from Hanlon's book, page 72. If you're a computer user, you understand what it means to log on, what a virus is, and what it means to crash. If you're talking to a teenage child or student or someone and you say crash to them, they're talking about going to bed, right? I'm a computer user. I'm talking about crashing. I'm going, oh my God, my system just went down, right? So sacred words are very specific to a community in in how they're interpreted and what they mean. In that last example I have on the slide, the teenagers texting, they use all these shortened words. I'm just like, I don't know. If you know that language, then you belong in their generation and texting world. For me, I know what TTYL is. That's about as far as I can go there. Got to go. Got to go is another one that I know. G2G. Um, and I only know those because I teach in high school. I do not use those in my everyday language. Those are not sacred words to me. But, they could also be invented words. They don't have to be words that you can find in the English language. Um, they, they're, the term lexicon is a term that Hanlon uses in the book, and I really like that term because he talks about it having precious meaning for those who believe in those terms. So I absolutely love that. And finally, we're going to end with the seventh element of branding, which is leadership. Now, for people who are in personal brands, the leader element represents the person behind the scenes, the person who embodies its values and beliefs, who communicates the message, and who, in our case, is the face of the brand. To hit this element, you want to think about having the ability to inspire, connect, and create that sense of trust with your audience. And it is a very key element to not just building a brand, but a strong brand. And Hanlon talks about the idea of a leader being a person who is a catalyst, a risk taker, a visionary, right? Someone who set out to recreate the world according to their own sense of self, community, and opportunity. I almost want to like take that and put it on a plaque somewhere in my room because I think that that is just an amazing, amazing, succinct idea of what a leader is. And he also stated that enterprise without a leader is like a headless elephant. It may eventually get somewhere, but only by destroying everything in its path along the way. And we can only think about some of these amazing individuals as leaders, visionaries, if you will, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates. Um, but you, Kevin, you, Manny, me, we are the leaders of our brands. And so we have to work to build our relationships and our authority to emphasize that leadership. And in doing so, I think it's really important that we remember this at um, as we wrap up. To be a leader of a personal brand, it's really important to be authentic, consistent, and express your values and purpose consistently, consistently, consistently. I know I just said consistently like 7 times, but I can't stress that enough. Um, and so those are the 7 elements. And just as in a summary, creating a primal code involves these steps: identifying your core values and beliefs, crafting a creation story that explains how you came to be, developing a set of rituals and behaviors that are associated with you, creating an icon or a symbol that represents who you are, building a community of people who identify with you, and in doing so, also identifying your non believers, developing language that expresses your brand's identity, and identifying a leader that embodies your brand. And in our case, identifying what aspects of ourselves embody our message. And so, with that, I'm going to come back and I have to tell you that I am incredibly, incredibly excited to hear what you guys have to say because it is my absolute favorite part of the evening, the time for us to connect and share our thoughts. So, what I'm going to ask of you guys is this. So, what are your thoughts on those 7 elements and which resonated with you? Like, hey, I'm already doing that. Or, wow, I need to focus on that a little bit more. And Manny, I'm going to bounce to you first.
There was a few things that actually I can definitely resonate. I love the branding part, and then when you throw in when you shared about yourself and your background and your glasses, and you're like, especially with when you were putting it with every morning in your life, you start off exactly like that, right? And then you take them off. I love that as that brand awareness, like she always does this very unique thing. So I really that caught me. Um, Sacred words, that resonated with me, and I usually use the term lingo. When you speak their lingo, you guys can connect so much better. And my comment just came up there from my true crime channel, because this is something that I kind of been struggling with. Like, I'll follow some of the other true crimers, and they kind of have unique names for their tribe. I've been thinking about that for a while. So the fact that you even bring that up in that part of it with the sacred words, I've been thinking like DTC tribe, DTC peeps. You kind of gave me that idea because you just said that. And so, like, that right there helps, like, you help bring this together when it comes to the branding of my channel, because obviously I'm growing a channel that's actually moving. So I'm thinking about a, a lot of that next step. So I love that. And something that resonated with me very well too was the leader, the face of the company. If it's truly one thing, I'm always saying whenever I'm talking to a prospective client for a social media agency, one of the things I say about live videos is, who's the face of the company? That's the person that should be doing this video the most. And I think that is, you really hit that when it came to branding. Like, who is the face of the company? That is part of your brand, right? Like, this is the person I see all the time. This is the person I feel like I know when I finally meet them. So I was taking notes here. I was paying attention. I was really digging this. Thank you so much. Kevin, what do you think? Like, how did this resonate with you?
Well, I know from A to Z, I have to do this for my own personal brand and my own personal business, I guess you would call it. But I do a lot of these other things for my other community that I'm involved with, and it's a nonprofit. So I what really resonated with me was the pagans. I've had a lot of people that have basically they were 100% supportive, but now they're transitioning to not being supportive anymore. So it's not that they're in it at the beginning and they're in it for life. It's like you have to be aware that they are willing or not willing. They are going to change and they may not decide to support you. So that is something that you sort of do have to accept. So that sort of resonated with me. Um, and what else? I definitely need to create that primal code as well at the very end. I found that was super in- interesting and necessary for me to have that code so that I can live by it and follow it and make sure that my beliefs that I'm following what I truly believe in. Because right now I don't have it written down and don't have something that I can hold myself accountable to. So getting something written down um, definitely is in my plans in the very near future.
I
So
love it.
a- absolutely a gold mine, not just little gold nuggets. It was a gold mine of information that you shared with us today, Dory. Absolutely loved it.
You won't put the book down once you get started. I'm telling you, you will not put it down. Um, but I don't know. I wasn't monitoring the comments as heavily as I normally do. Were there any questions out there lingering? Anything that we wanted to bring up on screen and address?
No, we were Manny and I were just tossing in our 2 cents along the way about our creeds and our what else did we yeah, a few
Rituals.
rituals that we were doing as well. And actually, that's
Excellent.
something that resonated with me as well. Is it's like, yeah, I when you started to explain rituals, it's like, yeah, I actually do those things, but I'd never really thought of them as rituals. It was just it's part of the process of getting ready, but that's a ritual.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think it's that time of the night, gentlemen.
My friends, if you enjoy content like this and you're finding it useful, we would love it if you like and subscribe. Sharing our content is also a great way to spread the love. And if you want to visit our website for any information, you got it right there, linktree/content creators connect. And we are on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you for joining us.
And make sure you drop down in the comments anything you'd like us to further dive into. If you go and take a look at our previous videos, you can see that we have covered a lot of what episode are we on now? So many different topics already. So if you find something that you want us to do a deeper dive on, give some further explanation, definitely let us know.
And thank you for joining Content Creators Connect, aka C3, tonight as we dove deep into the 7 elements of branding as presented by Patrick Hanlon in his amazing book. We return next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, where Kevin, this guy right up over here, will be talking about creating a professional live stream setup on a budget. We will be multicasting live to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, so be sure to join us. Until then, we urge you to identify and lean into your 3 C's. Start today creating unique content that builds connections and breaks down those barriers. See you next week.
Bye bye. Thanks for joining
Bye.
us.